studios of OC Talk Radio.
All that? Wow, I didn't know.
Illustrious and infamous. You didn't know that?
I didn't know that.
The cops haven't showed up to arrest you yet?
I thought you were going to say the beacon of truth here in Orange County.
Yeah, let's not get crazy. But we are a beacon. I don't know what exactly, like...
You're telling it. You're telling what nobody else will tell. That's what I won't jump in too much here, but your guest and I had a chance
Why stop now? You've been doing nothing but that for 4.5 years.
Your guest and I had a great conversation she got here early. We were talking about all the stuff going on that nobody knows about it. Nobody cares about in this county. I don't know why.
Let me just, this is a first for us on the show. Yeah. There's a first happening right now on this show.
Okay.
Are you aware of what the first is?
I didn't know.
You did not know what the first is. This is the first time on this show that I have a piece of paper in my hand with items on it. So watch out, okay? Yeah, it's going to happen today.
We have a direction.
No, finally. Okay, so enough of the riffing. But actually, my guest today is Debra Lewis, council member for Dana Point, and among other things, past mayor, and there is even a previous history that I just found out about. Multi-cities. Okay. So it actually provides us, I think, a really good opportunity to get a little introspective about South County, about that very important part of Orange County that's gotten more and more important, I think, over time. I've been there since '87 in San Clemente, and anybody who has been in South County more than 10 years, 15 years, you all know with the changes that we've experienced in everything, how hard we try to hold on to quality of life, which we have, in a great extent, I think, been successful at. But there's always these challenges, and it used to be where when I went to design school in Newport Beach at the Interior Designers Institute, a little plug there for IDI, there was no 73. And we'll get back to that, right?
Yes. Or 241 or 261.
You wonder what the first topic item on this list is? If anybody's been listening to the show, you're right.
Has three letters.
Okay, it's 3 letters. Center one looks like this. Okay, but all right. When I had to take PCH, I would take PCH, and it was a joy to take PCH. By the way, I would get out of Laguna, and between Laguna and Newport Beach, it was pastoral coastal California. Mm-hmm. The only thing that was there was the Shake Shack. That basically wasn't a Ruby's at the time. It was just a Shake Shack. There was no Crystal Cove homes on the hill. There was no shopping center where Javier's is. There was absolutely nothing until I hit the 5 Crowns in Corona Del Mar.
Right.
Okay, and then you got a sense, because of that part of Laguna and that part of Corona Del Mar, for somebody who hadn't grown up in this area in '87, I got almost like a glimpse of sort of slower Orange County. Okay. And then nothing. And then slower Orange County as I entered Corona Del Mar, and then you got towards Fashion Island, and it kind of picked up in activity, right? So it was kind of an interesting quality of life, and it hasn't gone away, but it has definitely changed, and the only constant is change, as we say. And South County is now coming into its own. It's kind of built up in a lot of places, right? Mm-hmm. And so we're now facing things that are not necessarily growing pains, but like what's the next evolution for certain things? Where do we stand on this thing? Do we get denser, for example? Do we not? Where is the sweet spot for us? Because if anybody's familiar with California as a whole, there's all these micro economies, microcosms, if you will. If you're in LA, West LA is different from Sunset area. South County is different from Central County. Newport Beach is different from Balboa. I mean, we have all these microcosms of different qualities of life. And we are, I think, at a crossroads in Orange County, in South County, where we have a lot of stuff that we're dealing with. Mm-hmm. And
definitely.
Serious stuff.
Definitely. And you talk to the people in Dana Point, because Dana Point's kind of interesting area, right? We have what I call the before harbor and after harbor.
Right.
And so
the Killer Dana.
Killer Dana, that's right.
And then the harbor.
Yes. Yeah. So a lot of people in Dana Point who lived there before the harbor and and when Killer Dana was the place to go.
By the way, Killer Dana is not a murderer. It's a surf spot that was infamous.
Yes.
So anyway, just for those who don't surf, that's what it is.
Yes, I had to learn what Killer Dana was too. It was this great wave that used to be there before they put the harbor in.
Before they put the breakers in. And
right, and then the wave didn't break anymore. Yeah. So we're having that struggle in Dana Point because the people that lived there and surfed there and grew up there, they see Dana Point as gone away. And what are you doing to Dana Point?
The soul, their connection to quality of life, manifesting itself or symbolized by that particular cresting wave or surf spot,
Yes.
being gone.
Right.
It ripped at their soul.
Yes,
Of what-
totally.
yeah.
It made Dana Point no longer Dana Point, and now I don't know if you've seen all the development going on in our town center, but
yeah.
it's looking very Irvine-esque now.
Well, Deborah, I remember even, when I got there, when I got to South County in '87, which got there accidentally, by the way, and
Don't we all?
Well, but here's a real funny story for somebody who was on the board for the San Clemente Historical Society for 15 years.
Okay.
Okay, when I first got to San Clemente, how I found out that there was a downtown on Del Mar
Oh, okay.
is because I accidentally turned right on a street heading south on El Camino Real. Because when we moved to San Clemente, I was working with a friend of my father's who had come over from overseas, was doing some development. Sea Point Estates, for those who are familiar with the local area, Sea Point Estates were just starting. We were doing a duplex project on the end of, in North Beach at the end of Buena Vista.
Okay.
And my sister was going to go to graduate school. So we said, well, we were kind of paying rent all the way through her undergraduate and my graduate school. So we just we're like, we'll just buy part of this duplex. And
Okay.
we'll, a couple of years from now, after she's done at UCI, who knows where we're going to be, right?
Yeah.
So we were at the north end of town, literally at a cul-de-sac at the end of Buena Vista.
Ah,
Right?
okay.
And I happened to go down on El Camino Real. I knew there was a PCH. Okay, everybody knows PCH. But I went like south. And I couldn't even tell you if I had gone south before on El Camino Real, right? Because everything was like north. I had come
Yeah.
from Claremont, La Habra,
Sure.
went to Claremont Graduate School for my graduate school. So I went south on El Camino Real. And I think I made a mistake and turned right on Del Mar.
That's too funny. Well, there isn't much south. I mean, there's nothing south of
Well,
San
back
Clemente.
then, too,
Yeah.
like that whole downtown T-zone kind of stopped
Yeah.
at like Palizada almost, right? But I turned right and I went down the street and I'm going, oh my gosh. And I had an affinity for old stuff to begin with, but I wasn't aware even that was part
That's
of
amazing.
the equation in San Clemente. Went down, oh my God, these two-story buildings, and they're sort of like eclectic California-esque, and then
yeah.
you follow it down, and then it turns left, and you're like, okay, where's this going to go? And then it turns right, and it blows your mind when that view comes into that vista, the ocean vista comes into view, and the pier just jets out like it's cutting through to the ocean. I mean, if you ask somebody who's not familiar with California, close your eyes and tell me from what you know, you would paint a picture of California. They would paint a picture of something like that. They would paint a picture like downtown San Clemente, maybe back in the day, Hermosa.
Yeah. Yeah.
Those kind of stretches, right?
Sure.
The endless summer kind of picture.
Yep.
Right?
Which was filmed by somebody from Dana Point, by the way.
Endless Summer was filmed by somebody from
Yes.
Dana Point. Yes, the cultural icon
Yeah.
symbol of surfing California, Beach Boys, all that stuff. This is the area we live in,
Yeah, absolutely.
and as recently as '87, I remember driving up through Dana Point. Right, the harbor was already there. Right,
Right.
but there's still, so I don't have the reference of Killer Dana.
Okay.
But I have the reference of from '87 till now.
When
and
did
how
they
things
build
have
the harbor?
changed.
When did they build the harbor?
65, I believe it was.
Okay.
Right around
Yeah.
65.
Yeah, it's about as old as I am, basically.
Oh.
That harbor's as old as I am.
Well, I'm not getting into that.
No, but I mean, I it's funny because I know that one, and I actually ran into an artist at Long Beach at their new downtown gallery for another show that I produced called Taste of the Beach. And I ran into an artist, this old man that was just sitting in this gallery while we were filming. And then it turns out that he had a painting that was on the wall.
Okay.
And so they introduced me to him when we finished filming. It was like, oh, this is so-and-so, and he has this painting. The guy looks very, humble. Like, you couldn't even tell there was no artistic flair. I thought it was a guy just walked in and just, got disoriented, doesn't know where he is right now.
Yeah.
Right? That painting that was hanging on the wall was a painting that was painted in 1965.
Wow.
So that painting was as old as I was, and I was standing there talking to the artist that had actually painted. That was pretty cool.
That is very cool.
When I encounter stuff like that, I kind of just mind
Yes.
lock it in. So going back to South County though, and we have that. Speaking of artists, we have that sort of eclectic culture too. Like you had the surfers, and you had sort of people that set up their own businesses, like What's up, Paul? You look like you're going to say something.
All I was, I wanted, somebody had tweeted, you were also the mayor of Rancho, right? When
I was.
When
I was the first mayor
Yeah, exactly.
back in 2000.
I was going to say, when did Rancho become incorporated?
It was on the ballot November 1999, and it was approved then. And the actual official incorporation date was January 1, 2000, because we all had to go in on New Year's Day and have a council meeting. And that was our first council meeting in Rancho.
So how do you go from one? That's on the
Well, how long?
two different sides of Orange
long,
County.
Yeah,
South
how
County.
long did you serve?
I was, well, like all of our cities, the mayor rotates.
Yeah.
So I was the first mayor, and I was the mayor for a year. And I was elected to a 4-year term. It was actually a little over 4, so we could do 3.
Now, are you
and 2.
are you guys elected specifically to mayor, or are you elected
No.
to city council?
Elected to city council, and then
internally.
it's selected
Got it.
by the city council.
Yeah.
And we ran, 5 of us ran as a slate, because I'll give you a little backstory. I was a practicing attorney in my former life before I was lucky enough to retire a couple of years ago and start living. So I moved into Rancho in, I believe it was 85. And
Right as it was being built.
And
I mean,
why
It was.
why Rancho? I mean, where were you before, if you don't mind me asking?
we've been moving down the coast. I originally started with my husband in Chicago. We met at University of Illinois, and we married when we were still in college, and we just had 47 this last September.
Congratulations.
I know, I can't believe it, because I haven't gotten 47 years older.
Yeah, how's the numbers work?
No. So we've started down the coast, and we had our first house in Irvine
Yeah.
back when interest rates were 17%, and my parents had to help us, and then the builder gave us a second. Anyway, so it was a small little house, and it appreciated like everything in California does, right? And so it must have been 89, we said, hey, we need a bigger house, like we all do, and this area was where all the families were, and
Got
it
it.
was new, and it was planned, and we found a house. We found a house in April, and it was beautiful and nice, and moved out there in August and went, whoa, hot.
What happened?
Because it is a different. You talk about
is.
microclimate
Yeah.
and
Yes.
things,
Yes.
that coastal California that you guys are so enamored with, that most people know, is not what sort of exists on the other side of the 5 freeway that bisects the county.
Is that why you hold such resentment for us
It
at
is.
the coast?
We're on the inland part. We're up against the mountain part, and it is warmer there. It is.
It is.
It's a different feel. The fog doesn't. Morning fog doesn't make it up there, and
You
very often.
You come around on the 5, and you get past like Oso, La Paz, and
Mm-hmm.
Oso, right? And you turn that corner, and you start heading south. And by the time you get to about Capistrano, for sure, you might be a little, depending on which way the wind is blowing that day, the temperature completely drops.
yeah,
like
drops.
Oh,
the
yeah.
15, 20 degrees, just,
Oh,
and the
yes.
fog rolls in.
Yes, as I get off. Okay, so, the beautiful thing about Rancho was we were right there at the Cleveland National Forest.
Right.
And so you'd come over Alicia, and you'd have that beautiful view of Saddleback, and it's very bucolic and nice.
Yeah, very.
But as I would drive from the 5 into Rancho, I would just watch the thermometer in the car going up, up. It's like, oh no, stop!
So I think would you guys think that we painted a pretty good picture of what South County was, and in part is still, because of a lot of people like you have stepped up and served, and put their energies and efforts into some of these newly formed cities, some of the existing places. San Clemente has been around since 1926, I think. I think it was incorporated in 1925, maybe. Which, ironically, everybody doesn't know that basically a lot of the historical buildings that we have in San Clemente were pretty much built in about 3 years.
Wow.
Like, that was the first planned community.
Yes.
And then they got hit by the Depression, and nothing happened forever. And so we have over 200 properties that are dating back from the founders' days, because people would drive right by us for the majority of the time, and then by the time they hit Pendleton, Camp Pendleton, they would go, did I step over a city? We ended up with a lot of the stuff still remaining.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a true story.
Yeah.
And I think in Dana Point, going back to Dana Point, it breaks my heart when I would meet with the Historical Society there, and they would tell me what was there and all the Doheny homes and all
That's
that
right.
stuff, all that stuff that's gone. And I may have started with the harbor thing, but just kind of piggyback on what you were saying. My impression of Dana Point was, for the longest time, Dana Point was really struggling to find its identity because it had gotten rid of so much that was part of that legacy and history. And now you were looking at a harbor, which is there's no ignore. I mean, it's very defining.
It is.
Right?
It is.
And then you had Del Prado, which was a two-way.
Yes.
And now it's been split up so that there's more of a little, downtown Main Street kind of feel, right by Luciana's and
Right.
where Montessori was.
Right.
Right.
Yes, my grandkids went to that Montessori school.
My nephews went to that.
Oh,
same,
really?
yeah. Broderick.
Yes.
Shout out to Mrs. Broderick.
Oh, yes.
So
she's
can I ask you one more
She's the
question?
best.
amazing.
She's the best.
Since
yeah.
we're talking, going down old history here, when did Dana Point decide that it was going to, which I don't think they were following as much as they used to, this old idea of being a New England clapboard, gray. It looks like it's been transplanted out of Cape Cod.
That's not the history of Dana Point.
No,
Well-
but it became so much of the after they built the harbor, so much of that followed that theme, and it was supposed to kind of look like this, named after Captain Dana, who stopped by there once.
Not
and it was-
Captain Dana. You're mixing up your history.
or whatever he was. Who was
Richard
it?
Henry Dana,
Richard
Rich Henry
Henry
Dana,
who was a
okay.
passenger on a ship.
There you go.
Out
Wrote
of
about it.
out of
Right.
Boston, who wrote about it because of for his health. He had come out.
Right.
One of the best things, and I think it was hide trading.
Yes, we have our famous little statue of him throwing the hides over the cliffs.
That's how they used to take the hides down from
Yep.
the. They would cast them. It was the beginning. Basically, Richard Henry Dana invented the frisbee. Right? They would throw the hides off into the water, and then people would be on the ships, and they would basically collect them, and that's how they basically
But
transport.
because of that connection, his New England connection, they seem to want to recreate a little piece of New England in the architecture and style and color for so many years in Dana Point. That's what I always have pictured Dana Point as. It was this artificial harbor created to look like a little New England town in the
Well-
middle of Southern California. I thought it was the most bizarre juxtaposition of architectural themes. But for
Is that, are those the architectural guidelines for the city?
Oh boy, don't even get me started on architectural guidelines in this
Well,
city
because-
because that has been one of my things, and I call Dana Point basically a patchwork.
Yeah, so there's no architectural guidelines.
There is no architectural guidelines. Unlike San Clemente, you guys have your general plan, and in general plan it says, we all have to have the Spanish architecture. In fact, all of the names of all of the street names have to be Spanish.
Yeah, some of them are a little too contrived, but yes.
Okay, yeah. Okay. But like so I've taken some Spanish now because I'm in a district with a lot of Spanish speakers, so I want to be able to reach out.
Yeah.
So now you realize, okay, like El Cajon, your city is named the Drawer?
Yeah. Don't even go down the path of Talega.
Oh, yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
let's not even talk
Okay,
about
okay.
Talega.
So anyway, so Dana Point is really a patchwork
Yeah.
quilt. And so one of my things is we have a municipal code that allows our planning department and our planning commission to look at, does this fit into the neighborhood? Does it have the right look, the right
Yeah.
feel, the right characteristics? And that is just ignored, and when I bring it up, they don't even want to hear about it. Basically, they look at the numbers, if it's the right offset, if it's the right height, if it's the right this, it meets the zoning code, we can't do anything about it.
Step backs, yeah, offsets.
And then
Well,
it
but-
gets
but-
approved, and so we have this patchwork.
But I never really thought about this, but now that we're having this conversation, I really love having these just kind of open-ended kind of conversations because things come up. Like I've lived there, like I said, since 87. You've been in South County since 85. How long have you been in Dana Point?
I've been in Dana Point since 2011.
Okay, so it's not like we're newcomers, but it's really interesting because I've never put the one and one together until we were just talking here, Debra, about the fact that San Clemente has those architectural guidelines because San Clemente, kind of by happenstance and luck and a lot of effort, I'm not taking away from all those giants of the historical society and those right-minded people that wanted to hold on to it, and people who kind of were born and raised, and that continuity basically helped, but there's a clear identity.
Yes, there is.
And here, and in counter to that, Dana Point, which had all these, because actually Dana Point has, Doheny homes that basically goes back to the same period of Ole Hansen,
Right.
the 1920s. In fact, there's a building right where the street now splits when you're coming in south on PCH, and it becomes, what is it, Del Prado and PCH now?
Yes.
Okay, so that split point, there is a building right there.
Yep.
There's actually two buildings right in that intersection that lend back to the history of Dana Point. That main building right in that little island used to be, if I'm not mistaken, the original real estate office
Yes.
for Dana Point.
It was.
That is a Spanish Revival architectural
It is.
building.
Yes, it
from
is.
dating from that period.
Yes.
The building that is now Coastal Kitchen used to be a gas station.
That's right.
Right. Original to that entry. So you had a gas station and a real estate office, basically. You could fill the gas and get the thing. We'll take
Very
it to a lot.
Southern
Right,
California,
very Southern
right?
California. It's
But
all
when
about
did
land purchase.
Land and cars.
Yeah.
But when did they come up with this idea of a New England town? Because I didn't
But
make
I
that
think,
up.
I think, Paul, what I'm trying to get to is, I think what happened is when you started dismantling that personality, that also had a strong attachment, just like with Trestles in San Clemente, to the surf culture. When you started dismantling these things, okay, San Clemente still had character that you could, people could kind of embrace and build an identity around. Dana Point did not.
No.
And so what happened is the harbor became the primary engine, economic thing, etc. And then people were kind of lost. And so, not to knock at the city either, but at that point you're looking at building codes, you're looking at setbacks, so that you're basically considerate of your neighbor, maybe some sidewalks so you have enough breathing room between houses and stuff like that. But what styling? And as happens in a lot of municipalities and people that are sort of in positions of authority, I'm only comfortable to tell you to a certain point.
Right.
The style that you should be, because
Yes.
all the San Clemente from day one when it started. I'm not talking about San Clemente but this is as a contra example. San Clemente from day one, Ole Hansen. If somebody built anything other than Spanish Revival architecture, it was in the title deeds. You built Spanish
It
Revival
was.
architecture.
It's in your general
Right.
plan.
Here's the color of white stucco.
Yep.
Here's the color of the red terracotta roofs.
Yeah.
He was really that maniacal, like just driven about it. And if somebody built something that wasn't, he would buy it, tear it down, and build it again. So, in contrast, just up the street,
Right.
you did not have that engaged focus for Dana Point.
Right.
And so, where
But I'm going to disagree. It did seem for a long time when I came to down to South County, Dana Point was a New England village. It had it had wood side buildings. It had gray structures. It had tons of that New England
near the water.
Near the water, it has that whole center where the Ralphs is now. That was all built just in the style you're talking
So
about.
they must have decided that we were going to take this theme on and run with it for a while, because there was tons of it built to look like
I don't
a
think
New England.
anybody ever
I don't
had
think it
a
was-
theme. What
yeah.
happened was
Yeah.
you got a developer who came in and said, "This is what
This
I
is
want to
what I'll
build,"
sell.
and you had a city and city planners and a city commission, the
Yeah.
planning commission,
Yeah.
who. They didn't consider that their job to look at what it looked like. They
Well, and I don't wanna
considered it their job
Yeah.
to look at, okay, does it meet our objective criteria, even though we had a municipal code, but we didn't have a general plan like Rancho and
Right.
San Clemente, where there was a look, a feel, a plan. So it just kind of grew
Evolved.
up organically.
Yeah, organically. And you can
But
see
they
that.
named all these streets lanterns. There's all these lanterns.
No.
Everything had this
Those are-
shipping
those are
kind.
original
That
names.
was from the original when it was built in the 20s,
Yeah.
because when the Depression came in, much like San Clemente and
Yeah.
I'm sure lots of places, everything just died.
Yeah.
But originally the Lantern District was called the Lantern District because they actually had lanterns on those streets of those colors. So Amber Lantern had an amber lantern and
Golden
blue
lantern,
lantern and
yeah.
golden lantern, and that was the look of the area. And I bet it was quaint and really cute and nice.
But it had a shipping kind of feel to
It
lanterns
did. It
imply
did.
shipping.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but Paul, for example, there was I don't know if it was a motel or an inn. Let's just call it a hotel. Okay, that was right there on the corner of PCH and what is the road that goes into the harbor?
There's Harbor Drive.
Is that Harbor Drive there?
Yeah, there's Harbor Drive that goes right.
you
A
turn-
golden lantern.
No, the one that's if I'm heading north from San Clemente, I come off the freeway, and I'm on PCH, and I turn left.
Okay, so you go onto
Where
the
the
Harbor
Christmas,
Drive.
where the Christmas
Right.
tree lot is.
So you go onto Harbor Drive,
Harbor
there. Yeah.
So the corner of Harbor Drive and PCH used to be a Spanish Revival hotel,
Okay. Yeah.
right?
We-
And that one got purchased and stripped, and the bones of it just laid there like a whale beached on Dana Point Beach, basically. And it got to the point where it was dilapidated enough, I mean, and maybe that was the intention, but dilapidated enough to basically have to be condemned.
Okay.
And that was a historical building that basically just disappeared. And it was right there, exactly down the street, literally less than a block down from where the bridge that is the entry point to Dana Point
Yes.
is a Spanish Revival architectural bridge.
Our bridge, yes.
All I'm saying is when I came here, everybody I knew, including me, thought of Dana Harbor as not a Spanish-looking thing, but it was a New England town.
I
built
agree
around
with
this
you. It
artificial
wasn't
harbor.
Spanish. It was very New England looking. But
Yeah.
then you go down to Capo Beach,
Yeah.
so that we have
Capo is Spanish.
we have Seaside Inn, which is on PCH, which is now in that dilapidated, condemned, and we're in litigation over that. It was very much like what Paul's talking about. It was more the New England,
Yep.
that sort of look. So my point is, we didn't have a look. We didn't have a plan. We didn't have a city and city planners and a city planning commission that really was trying to give Dana Point an identity. And even today, when Visit Dana Point is trying
Yeah,
to come up
yeah,
with our identity, they're
Okay,
like,
so
"What?"
that's a great point to turn this conversation to specifics, okay? So let's start with that one.
Okay.
So after all of this, which has basically been a quagmire of, just happenstance and organic this
Yes.
and that and so forth, right? Down to not very long ago, a Spanish Revival bridge put in as the point of entry into a town that is half
New England, yeah.
half Spanish. The
Right, it
the
was
Monarch
crazy.
Monarch Beach that used to be St. Regis, which is very Palladian
Yes.
kind of architecture. Okay, the Ritz Carlton, that's a beautiful property, but it has a little its own character as well, right?
They call it the Laguna Niguel.
And they call it the Laguna Niguel. That's
In Dana Point.
That's one of those local stories. Is it
Yes.
Dana Point or is it Laguna Niguel, right? Because
Yes.
there's this
I
about
thought it
who
was
cla-
the Laguna
No,
Niguel.
Dana
No,
Point.
it's Dana Point.
Right, it's Dana Point, but it's actually called the Laguna Niguel.
Yes, it
Laguna
is.
Hill.
Yeah,
Right.
because they always call it that.
Yes.
I thought
So-
it was right in the
So also then you have the what you call the Marriott.
Yes, the Laguna Cliffs Marriott.
Laguna Cliffs Marriott. Which
Notice
is,
they use Laguna because Laguna was the name that sold. And so everybody wanted Laguna in their
well,
name.
It's just like the Anaheim Angels of Los Angeles
Yeah,
Anaheim
yes.
Angels of Anaheim.
Yes.
Right? I mean, so that's branding. But so to just bring us around, because we got a bunch of stuff that we want to
Okay.
talk about. Relevant to this. So is Dana Point today have a sense of its identity any clearer than what it was like, let's say, 10 years ago?
Okay, so this is. Oh, let me give the
Is there a-
disclaimer
is-
so the attorney and the other city council members are happy with me. These are my opinions,
Yeah.
right? I'm not speaking on
Right.
behalf of the city. No, I don't think so.
I'm not-
I don't think
I'm
there's
not-
an
I'm
identity.
not knocking it.
I don't think there is.
Yeah. So I mean, because
I would like to see an identity.
Is there a vision document?
No. There's a general plan, which the general plan was drafted in '89 when the city became a city, and it has not been revisited since. In fact, one of the things that we've just given $1 million to is to revisit our general plan. But honestly, my opinion, we're so far past where we could have anything
Yeah.
as an identity. I mean, we have all that development now. The Rain Tree, it's
Right.
huge. It takes up 3 square blocks. We have another development where they're taking down a whole block and putting up. Those days are gone when we could impact
The
it.
town center
Yeah.
development, the high density.
Yeah.
You got higher density coming
Oh
in.
yeah, we've got Irvine buildings going up.
Right.
I mean, so the days when we could have had a look, a feel, a design, in my opinion, we missed that window.
So what do you do relevant to that? You just kind of basically do the best that you can,
Yes.
or can you even manage it,
I think
or is there no desire to basically go there?
So let me ask
there
another-
has been no desire. I have been the lone voice, honestly, on the council, talking about not approving a project because we have a code section that allows us to get
Well, let
into
me
the
get a few more things in.
subjective, and they won't go there.
Okay, so this is what I was trying to paint the picture. I know it took us a while to get here, but this is exactly the kind of challenges that South County is dealing with. And it's symbolized by Dana Point because it's such a visible
Yes.
thing and has a lot of commercial potential
Oh, it
for
does.
people that are coming in and saying, hey, there's no limitations.
Yeah.
I don't want to go to San Clemente. They're going to drive me crazy for 10 years and nothing's going to happen.
Yes.
I'll just go to Dana Point.
Oh, that is true. I mean, we have been kind of the Wild West. We don't even have a business license in Dana Point.
Wow.
I mean, yeah, and what's one of the things I tried to talk to the chamber about, because a lot of these businesses have businesses in other cities where there's business license, so it's not like, you know,
not a new thing for
put
them
a
to deal
business
with.
license in. It's like, whoa, that's weird. But this is the kind of how it organically grew up. Is, don't tell me what to do. I want to live here. I want it to look the same way. And there is that struggle with people who moved in at that period and people who moved in later and say, hey, we need to kind of give Dana Point a facelift.
Well, and you've got another thing that's kind of interesting, because I see that happening even in Irvine. Okay, you got it's happening already in San Clemente, irrelevant to who's running for city council and things like that. You have people that are moving in,
Yes.
and in your case, in larger numbers because of all the units that are now about to come online.
Yes.
Right.
Although those are apartments. But the one in South Cove by the bridge, affectionately called the Bridge to Nowhere.
Yeah, but those apartments, Debra, are still people that are going to vote.
Right.
They're newcomers. They don't have
Yes.
that connectivity to the community, not right or wrong, but they don't. So they're going to be making decisions based on what their background and experience is. And so they got now all those numbers that are basically going to come into play, from everything from voting
Yes.
for city council
Yes.
to decisions on initiatives, task force, involvement in volunteer operations. I mean, all of it.
Oh, yeah. So it's, and, you know, we have all that South Cove by the Denny's and
Yeah.
the Bridge to
Yeah,
Nowhere.
that new-
Those are all condos. People are coming in. So, it's
what
definitely
What is
changing.
going to happen to all that traffic through that bottleneck off Dana Point? Because everybody's like whining about San Clemente and the toll road, and you know how I feel about that. It's like, heck no, they're not on my, not on.
Oh, yeah.
not on
I'm
my
so
watch,
with you there.
right? But at the same time, how are we going to? I mean, it's going to bottleneck right there into Dana Point.
It is, and it already has. I don't know if you've been.
So the
if you've
241 isn't
driven.
going to help anything to do with that.
The 241 has nothing to do
Right.
with that. In fact, when I talked to the TCA people who came and talked to
Maybe
us,
we should run the toll road into Dana Point.
yeah, right. When they talked to
Right
us,
into the harbor.
I'm sure that the Dana Point Harbor Partners, that has a lot of money and influence, would say,
you can
yeah,
you can bring it right off the hill as you come down to beach cities, and then just drop it right into the harbor.
yeah, I don't think so. But so,
Wait, you mean they're not motivated by like actually relieving congestion by building toll roads?
well, see, here's
Well,
where I am.
quickly.
Here's where I am.
You're
I
gonna
don't
go
think the
down a
toll
rabbit
road
hole
is
here.
going to is going to relieve that congestion. And when the toll road heads came and talked to me when I was first mayor in 2017, first thing I said to them is, okay, I lived in Rancho and I live here. People do not travel south on the toll road from Rancho and now
course they don't.
Rancho Viejo. They're
Yeah.
going towards Irvine and
Right.
all the
Right, it's
places
all heading
where
west.
where you work. I said, how is this doing anything, and where is the data that says you have enough traffic to sustain this? And what they told me is, well, we don't work on data. What we do is we have opened this up and let the public just give us all of their suggestions, and then we study them. We don't do data. I'm like, how can you not do data?
Don't confuse me with the facts.
And yet this
you
is
know.
Yeah.
yet
Yeah.
this is an agency that collects money for every
Lots.
single remodel
Lots of
or
money.
development.
Yep.
Okay. They put
Yep.
a Chase Bank in the middle of an existing shopping center in San Clemente. The TCA got money for that.
Okay.
All those units that are high density that are happening off Crown Valley,
Yep.
they get money for that. In Dana Point at the city, there's a rate sheet.
Oh, we gave last year.
That keeps increasing, by the way.
Oh no! It increases automatically. Last year, Dana Point paid over $620,000 in development impact fees to TCA, and you have to understand, Dana
poor
Point
guys
is
that cannot-
6 square miles, and we're 34,000 people. How small we are! We've given over $6 million
Yeah.
to TCA.
So it's poor guys that basically don't have enough money to pay off their
know.
bonds and return their freeways
Yes.
to public use.
Yes,
Yeah.
well, and that they had to refinance them because they don't have the traffic.
Well, trying to be fiscally responsible.
Yeah, well, they tried to get their junk bond rating up
Yeah.
so that they could refinance
Yeah, to get a
because
better deal.
because they can't make the payments.
Yeah, so basically, if you haven't gotten this yet from any time that I've basically mentioned those 3 accursed letters,
Yes.
okay, without even taking it personally,
Yes.
which is hard to do when you live in that part because you're basically being bombarded, okay, by all kinds of special interests, by all kinds of lobbying, okay, and those lobbying tentacles go all the way through all of Orange County. There's project after project, development after development, where you say the same people, basically, their names come up, and they're all basically lining their pockets with consultancy fees, with contracts, etc. Hey, hats off to them for building a system that just basically builds the public trust the way it does, and you can't call them on it because nobody is involved at that level is actually elected.
That's right.
All right?
Right.
But with that being said, just on a pure efficiency level, the entity is defunct.
Entity's been defunct for probably
for years.
20 years.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a shell
It
that
is.
basically is being used as a
Yes.
Ponzi scheme.
Yes. Well, and to talk about that, talk about some numbers. So originally they had like $2.9 billion in debt before they refinanced. By the time now they pay it off, assuming they do, which I don't think they ever
Well,
will.
there's no
in
motivation for them to do
2040,
that.
it will be over 11 billion.
Deborah, there's no motivation to do that. If I was
absolutely
sitting
not.
in that seat and basically gaining money from
Right.
being in that position,
Yes.
there's nothing that would cause me to want to kill the cash cow that is bringing me money.
That's right. It
Unless,
isn't-
unless I find another bigger pot of money, and I'm not even going to go there right
Okay.
now, bigger pot of money that I can basically put my attention and focus on.
yes.
Like
It
maybe
is
the
in,
homeless issue.
it is in business to
You said
be
you
in
weren't going
business.
to go there.
Well, I went. So
It's in business to be in business.
whatever.
It's not in business to build roads.
No. It because even by their own numbers, you talk about they don't do data, but by their own numbers,
No, they don't do data.
they all by their own numbers on the extension of the 241, which
Yeah.
is God knows how many millions of billions of
Yes.
dollars, right?
Yes. The most expensive road they're going to build.
through the back of people's homes, through mitigation land that was deeded as part of development.
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, it's free for all. Let's just grab it, right? Let's
yeah.
let's just basically, what's the word I'm looking at? Eminent domain it. Let's just eminent domain it and take it, right? You're running behind $1 million homes.
Mm-hmm.
So for all those people that live in, like Crystal Cove, Newport Cove, all this stuff. Imagine if you just ran another freeway through your
Oh,
back
yeah.
on elevated concrete pylons,
Right.
Right? That did what? Supposedly relieve traffic by how much? At best 7%.
Yeah. I agree.
7%. And to Deborah's point, the traffic doesn't flow through that part. It comes from San Diego. It can track right through Pendleton
Right.
and around and connect to the 241. Most of the traffic on the 241 goes west towards Irvine.
That's right.
And from Irvine to those residential communities.
But I got to point out what Deborah and I were talking about beforehand is this brilliant strategy of how this toll road's been built from the beginning, one city at a time.
Divide
and
and
I know
conquer.
this drives you crazy.
'em off, yeah.
As angry as San Clemente is now, they weren't angry when Deborah was mayor of Rancho, and some people in Rancho were not happy with the toll road was going to go by the high schools and some other things here. Rancho wasn't able to stop it. The other toll road through Laguna Canyon, they really got wound up. They didn't stop. They stopped some of it, but they didn't stop the actual road.
But you know what
going
they
through.
did in Laguna? Laguna, what they did is they literally actually bought that land
Right.
and put it into a trust.
But you know what bothers me is when the cities do come together, we saw how powerful they were when we fought the airport,
Yeah.
El Toro, and we were fighting money, big money,
Big
and
money.
Newport Beach and all of the North County cities, and we still succeeded. And what bothers me is that the cities won't do that same thing, and I have been
No.
trying
I'll add
really hard
I'll
to do
I'll
that.
add another layer of disappointment to that.
Yeah.
The same people that fought against the airport and succeeded
Yeah.
in stopping that impact on quality of life.
Yes.
Okay. Those are the same people that got elected because of their efforts to higher seats in government.
Right.
Okay? And those are the same people that are reluctant now to basically stand behind. Some of them have come around a little bit, but to stand
Not much.
against a very similar situation
Yes.
that got them basically a platform to get elected on, that now is about to impact that same place that they came from.
Yes. Well,
I
you
mean,
know.
I don't want to say sellout, but it's kind of
Well, it is.
kind of sold out.
Well, and that was
It
the
is.
amazing thing about what happened in the airport, because I did live in North County at the time, and I thought, okay, we're going to build an airport down there. What the heck? And then I moved down to Rancho and discovered it was going to fly. They first built all the houses and everything else, and then told us later,
That's right.
there's going to be an airport over your head here. They knew
That's
what they
right.
were doing, because nobody would have bought the
Well,
houses
it's the same
if they
people
knew.
same people that bought just recently in Cow Camp. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, right.
And basically, we're told that it was actually on the map in the in the sales office.
Okay.
There was a future road
Yeah.
The
Oh, yeah.
241 was indicated on the map at the sales office of Cal.
But nobody told them. Yeah, nobody.
No, it's right there.
I know, but
It was
this-
on in all the literature.
Yes. Nobody tells you, but a lot of times I know when I was in
So
Rancho
you're
buying the house and they tell you, I don't know if that road will ever go through.
Yeah, exactly. That
you know,
airport will
oh,
ever
and
happen,
that's
right.
not the final. So, you know, they're not saying to you, oh, yes, it's going to be
Dangle.
right by your house.
Let me just dangle
But,
it.
you know, getting back to the money, the people who were elected are different with TCA because, like in Rancho in 2018, outside money came in and packs of dark money, so you don't know where the money
Oh, yeah.
comes from. And in our little city, they spent $70,000. They spread a bunch of lies, and they got people,
it's happening in the
TCA friendly.
It's happening in the special election that's in San Clemente right now.
Oh,
It
yeah,
happened
I'm
in the
watching yours.
It happened in the previous election cycle. It happens in your town in Dana Point as
Happened
well.
in Laguna.
Happened in Laguna.
I got to know Tony
Yeah.
Eisman, who's been in Laguna forever.
Yeah.
Ever, and she said it's happening in Laguna too.
Yeah.
They did the same thing,
Yeah.
trying to get rid of her.
Yeah, it's not actually not to be expected, but the disappointment is when it starts basically pitting neighbors against each other.
Yes, and that's what they've done. They've picked us off one city at a time, which is why I get frustrated that we can't work together. That duck and cover is sort of the strategy now.
Mm-hmm.
If I don't raise my head, they won't hurt me. Well, no, they won't hurt us if we all work
Well,
together.
and here's the thing you got to really ask yourself honestly. I mean, it's even more basic and core human thing. Do you stand, even if you lose, do you stand for what you believe in, where your values are, or don't you? Mm-hmm. That's really what it comes down to. And whether you win or lose, that depends on strategy and a whole bunch of other stuff. But I'm not saying you sacrifice yourself for the cause, but if you don't at least add a voice to what it is that you at your core believe in, whether you agree with me or not, I'll respect you if you don't agree with me, but you have the passion to basically not only espouse something, but also support it.
Right.
Okay? If you don't do that, that's really where the rubber meets the road. I mean, all this other stuff is just layers of distractions and noise and all this stuff. And it's unfortunate because every single item on this paper that I'm looking at here, everything we just talked about impacts all of it.
Oh, absolutely.
All right?
So do any of the other cities, does Rancho or Mission Viejo or Dana Point, even though the toll road's passed them by now, it's been built near them or through them or whatever, are any of them involved in the fight to block the last section through San Clemente, or is San Clemente stand alone?
It depends. I'm gonna give a shout out, for example, to show friend Greg Ratz, who's a candidate now for a congressional seat, but also Greg basically at a meeting in Mission Viejo was the only dissenting voice when they tried to pull a resolution at the city level to support the TCA, and he was like, well, hold on a second, right? And there are some people that have that sort of moral compass, whether it's 100% on the level of other people or not, doesn't matter, but they have actually voiced an opinion, no. To the credit of some people like Bill Bro, for example, some people that, I'm trying to remember whether it was Pat Bates or some of the people that are in higher office have come around to at least verbalize in a very diplomatic way, which is absolutely understandable given their position. Okay, they have voiced concern. They have with the operation of the organization, with the way it actually conducts business. They have basically strongly voiced a concern about the impact on quality of life that this extension would do. So I'm going to give them credit because they did. Now, that was a couple of years ago, and I'm assuming that their position is still the same on this, but it's kind of a waiting game. I mean, the TCA is actually trying to wait out South County.
Oh, absolutely. And I must say there is a vocal group of which I am a member, and on social media, we put out the word TCA needs to go. TCA is corrupt. TCA is taking money. They're not building roads. They're just refinancing. The
mission was to build roads during
Right.
the time when the county was in bankruptcy.
Yes.
And the idea was that they were going to set up basically bonds or some instrument that will basically collect that money, put it towards building roads. They will collect tolls in order to pay for these roads, and at some point they are going to return those roads to public use.
It was supposed to
And
be
we have missed
30
those.
years.
We
It
missed
was
those
supposed
days,
to be
but-
a public-private
That's right.
partnership because
Yeah.
public business could do it better than government.
That
Right.
was what they told us.
No,
Yes.
and then it turned into a cash cow, and there's really no justification. And if I was sitting in that seat and basically with that same
And
kind
the
of
cash
moral
comes
compass,
from what? People don't. You understand, but I still don't understand. Where does their cash come
all the
from?
developer fees
And
all
the bonds.
on the bonds
And now the toll. So if you take the 73
that keeps going up too.
that will get you into the Irvine area from South County during the peak time, it's about $9 one way. I call it the 1% solution.
No, the 91 during rush hour
Yeah.
is up to $20
Oh my God.
one way.
So
in
they
the
collect
fast lanes.
they
Yes,
they
it's a captive-
collect the
captive
tolls.
audience.
Yes, it is.
Let's just go through this again because I don't think most of the public gets this.
Okay.
So this is break down the structure. The Orange County Transportation Authority oversees the TCA, or are they separate?
They are separate at this point, and in a couple
It's a
of
joint
years,
powers agency.
the TCA has to actually start paying them to maintain these roads. So there'll be additional money that the TCA has to shell out.
TCA has to pay Orange County
OCTA.
Transportation Authority, which
J-
was
TCA, yes, has to pay them. In a couple of years, that will
to
start.
maintain the roads. And
Right.
the Orange County Transportation Authority is funded by what? The Measure M tax?
Measure M tax, yeah.
Which was an additional quarter
Yes.
cent or something. And
Yes.
this was to what? To take care of and build and maintain roads in Orange
Right.
County?
expand freeways, etc. Like we had an expansion of the 5 through San Clemente
Forever.
and it
Yeah.
finally ran.
So
the
OCTA
Ocho
exists,
lanes.
and who runs OCTA? Is it all the cities provide board members?
No, that's the TCA.
The
where all
TCA.
ci- the OCTA is just a
governmental agency.
government agency, right,
But from the county.
from the county. Yeah.
And then the TCA was set up by what? As a joint powers authority, a joint or a
Yeah.
Between the county and then private industry, which was to finance the roads, and each of the cities that joined the GPA,
The
TCA.
the TCA had.
you see why
has-
everybody's confused.
I know.
yeah.
Well, it's a JPA because it's joint powers. It's very government
Yeah.
speak, right?
Right.
So, all of the cities that joined the TCA put 2 members of their city council onto the TCA board. So there's 2 actual joint power authorities. There's the San Joaquin, and then there's the
The 241 and the
Corridor.
261,
so there's 2 different ones, which most people don't understand.
didn't know that.
So there's
Okay.
2 different boards.
Right.
One city council member serves on one of the TCA boards, the
The
San
other one serves on the
Joaquin,
other one.
and the other one will serve on the Foothill.
Right.
Right.
So that's what makes up. But honestly, when I went to the TCA meeting in June, and they were voting on whether or not to hire the independent auditor, you could see the board is less than a rubber stamp because the executive people had already hired
Right.
the
Oh, my
CPA,
goodness.
had already signed the
yeah, yeah.
contract before they even brought it to
Before
the
they
board.
voted on
Well,
it.
and who are
And
the,
before they voted on it,
who,
yes.
who are the longest sitting people there? It's the staff
Yep.
and the executive board. It is. It's not. It's sorry. It's the staff. It's not the members from the city because those members of the city are assigned, and they are basically elected. So they go through cycles. And so if you're there for like what's a person's tenure on? It's
Well,
like assigned every year, right?
Our people have been on there for this is probably their 5th year.
The same person.
Yeah.
But they have to get reelected,
They get
and therefore they're still on.
But we have a 4-year term, so at least for us, the person who got appointed
So how
has
much
been
money
going.
do you think the TCA between these 2 joint power authorities, the 241, the 261, the San Joaquin corridor and the Foothill corridor, you quickly see there's so many names and initials that's
Yes.
what everybody gets confused. But there's 2 toll roads that were built.
Right.
The cities each provide members to be on the boards of those 2 toll, one on one and one on the other.
Yes.
How much money does the TCA or each of those entities make through the tolls?
or collect.
Collect
Well,
through
they-
the tolls, through the development fees that they get to charge for new development, and what else? And through the bonds, the
Yeah.
earnings on the bonds or whatever.
The bond is really where they get the bulk of their money, but the development impact fees, like I said, Dana Point, just since they've been taking these development impact
$6
fees,
million.
$6 million. Last year, 622. Most of it went to the foothill. But
So
it's
every time you build something in this area,
They collect a fee.
They collect a fee.
And the fee that they collect is on the TCA's own website, and they have a map of what zone each of these areas is in. So it's Zone A, Zone B, Foothill, or San Joaquin, and it will tell you exactly how much your city is paying, because here's what zone they're in. For the Foothill, and how much they pay for the San
And if
Joaquin.
not for those toll roads, those fees would have gone where? Nowhere? There would have been
Nowhere.
no fee?
There
Right.
would have been no fee.
There would have
That's
been
a
no
layer.
fee.
That's a layer of fee, and the
Right.
idea is that that layer of fee is supposed to either help build more roads or basically pay off the bonds.
Right, and it increases automatically every year. So the board doesn't even have to go back and look and say,
It doesn't have to be voted on.
okay, now what's our financial situation? Do these need to be increased? Can we decrease them? No, it's automatically the escalator clause is built into them, so that they don't ever have to
So your city
put these
representative-
elected
your-
people
your
in a
ci-
position of
Voting.
voting.
So you've
right.
created two bureaucracies
Yes.
that are not really run by the government. They have some oversight because it's a joint power.
And not really
over 'em.
answerable to the voter, because
Right.
nobody's sitting there other than this board that is really,
How many people
musical
work for
chairs.
these entities? Do they have dozens, hundreds?
Well, I know
or-
the executive committee is probably 6, and the amount they pay themselves is amazing. Like Cramen, who's the CEO, they just upped his compensation this year, so he gets $440,000 a year. Now,
Plus-
this is somebody who their mission is to build roads, and they haven't built a road in 20 years. So this is a gig I want, $500,000
Yeah,
to
right.
not do
to
anything.
not do anything. Yeah.
But so he gets 440, which is his fully loaded compensation. There's all kinds of them.
Paul-
They're somewhere between 250 and 440.
So you've created a bureaucracy that you've put in place that's well paid,
Yes.
highly paid.
Yes.
That's there to supposedly build. Do they don't maintain the road? They just build new roads.
They build the roads. Oh, and here's another thing. So I asked, well, what if we just get out of the TCA? We don't have to be part of this. Well, apparently, I was told that in the agreement, if you get out, you have to pay up front all of those developer fees that you would have had to pay if you had stayed in. So they make sure you never get out. It's like marriage,
So this money
it's
is
easy to get in and
this money
really
is-
expensive
They
to get
collect
out.
tolls, they correct bonds, and they
Yes.
correct development fees.
Yes.
And all that money goes towards what? It was supposed to go to pay off the bonds, but it's not paying off the
No,
bonds.
it's kind of like I was explaining to Paul. It's like, you buy a home, and the home, let's say you buy a $500,000 home. By the time you get your financing, at the end of your 30 years, you're paying $1.5 million. But then during the time you live in that home, things happen that you hadn't anticipated. Oh, I lost my job. My kids need college. So you refinance that home. And now, instead of being paid off in 30 years, you're paying it off in 50 years. And instead of paying $1.5 million by the time your first mortgage would have been paid off, now you're probably paying $2 or $2.5 million. And that's exactly what TCA has done. They had a junk bond rating because they way overestimated their revenue. They couldn't meet the revenue, so they refinanced it. And they refinanced it by taking some of the interest, called accretion bonds, some of the interest that they would have been paying in the debt service, not paying it, adding it to the principal. So the principal is actually increasing as time goes by.
because they miscalculated how many
Right.
people would use it, and therefore how many tolls they'd collect. It was far less than they expected.
Yes.
And then they couldn't pay the bonds.
Right.
So they refinanced them, and part of the refinancing was to say, we're going to take part of that which you owe us and just add it to the principal?
Yes, that's part. Remember during the pre-meltdown of the mortgage, they were getting anybody into a home, whether you could
Yeah,
afford it or
didn't
not.
matter,
And
right.
one of the tricks was to say, okay, we'll take some of the money that you have to pay in your debt service, and we'll just add it to your principal, and we'll balloon it, because balloons were really big, and then
Yeah,
people
you owe it
couldn't
in a
meet the
big payment
balloons.
someday.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
right.
So
someday.
Right. So that's kind of where
So
we
you're
are.
saying we've created these two entities that will never turn the roads back to us, probably,
Probably.
and two entities that have staffs of highly paid people
Yes.
who constantly are going to collect money for the rest of our lives,
Yes.
supposedly to build roads or pay off the debts, and they do neither.
Yes.
Correct. Pretty much.
That kind of
So,
sums it up.
I want to ask you, Paul.
Oh, so why isn't anybody mad about this? Why doesn't anybody know about this?
If that is the $64 million question, I don't know. I keep talking about it, and people that I know keep talking about it, and San Clemente certainly has been screaming about it. I don't know.
Well, I mean, at this point, it's been institutionalized.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people that are basically benefited, and there's a lot of people that have been involved,
Consultants and whatnot.
Yeah, like I said, there's no motivation to kill this cash cow.
Oh, no. The motivation, you're right, is completely the
Yeah,
opposite.
the exact opposite.
Keep
for
it
those who
going.
are benefiting. So I understand that. I mean, I don't necessarily agree with it, but I understand it.
Yes.
Paul, how much time can we run over?
Let's go till the bottom of the hour here, because I want to bring up. I know you guys could go on and on about this, but I have
No. I want to get off this topic because
Okay.
we have other ones.
Well, I
but
do want to ask her one topic.
Okay.
If
Sure.
I'm going to throw in some time here. I'm going to throw in my question. So I hear these mysterious rumblings. I see who's the supervisor? Lisa
Bartlett.
sends her newsletters because I'm in her district.
Okay.
And there is some giant new plan being created, and it's like am I wrong? It's $1 billion plan or some crazy thing to redo the whole harbor, some massive.
Yeah, so let's jump
Okay.
to that. Let's
All
jump
right.
to the harbor situation.
Because what?
Sure.
And as part of that, what are they going to do, and when are they going to do it, and what's it going to cost, and what does it do to this small town of
Well,
Dana
you
Point?
You didn't realize the scale of this thing when I said we should just run the toll road into Dana Point?
No. You're kidding.
You're
but-
about to find out why.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, we do have the 5 that runs right by
Close, yeah.
Dana Point, so that makes us more accessible than Laguna Beach.
Which already backs up for everybody who's exiting to go to the harbor.
Oh yeah. We
And
don't
get
have to
off
get
on
into
that.
Let
that.
alone
So
what you're about to add to that whole
yeah.
Right,
infrastructure.
so
let's get to the harbor.
Let's get to the harbor. What is it? When is it? What's it going to cost? What's it going to do? What's
Okay,
the
so
what's the
there-
plan?
For the past 20 years, there's been rumblings of we got to update our harbor because the harbor is really nice, but it needs a facelift.
But it's also not.
It needs a
But
facelift.
it's also not Dana Point.
No, it's not. It's
So
the
let's
county.
just be clear. It's a county.
Well, actually, it's the state.
Oh, okay.
And the county, under this trust, is the one who controls it. But
Right.
it's owned by the state, controlled by the county, and sits in Dana
Just for
Point.
those who are about to get upset to know where their upset
That's right.
should be targeting.
Say that again, because that bears repeating. The state of California owns the harbor.
Yes, and
But the-
under a land trust, a trust that gives the county of Orange control over it, and it sits in the city boundaries of Dana Point. So I gotta tell you, it took me
this is covered
so
back in days
long
in South County.
to
yeah.
understand because Dana Point is a patchwork quilt of things that the state owns, the county owns, and the city owns. So most people don't realize here in Dana Point, we don't own any of our beaches. Unlike Laguna Beach and San Clemente, we own no beaches. The state owns some of them and the county owns some of them, but we own none of them. So people come to me and go, well, do something about this beach. It's like, we don't own that. Really?
Yeah.
So
That's crazy.
so
All
it
right, I
took
didn't
me
know that.
years
All
to
right.
even figure out what we own and control.
back
So
to the harbor.
now we have a harbor, and there's been these rumblings for 20 years that this needs revitalization, and it's going to pump a bunch of money into the economy of South Orange County, and very specifically Dana Point. So they went to the public-private model because Lisa
Because it
Bartlett
works so well on the
yes,
TCA.
because it works so well on the TCA. But the feeling when Lisa came in was, we've been trying to do this in the county for 20 years. The county is not in the building business. Why don't we get a partner who's in the building business, and we'll partner?
And just quick aside, wasn't she on the city council in Dana Point? Or
She
where-
was.
Yeah. Okay.
She was.
So she's very familiar with this.
Yes. Yes. Many of our people have come from Dana Point. Bill Bro, Diana
yeah.
Harkey.
I didn't know that. Okay.
Diana
I mean,
Harkey.
A lot of that effort against the airport too. That was like a launch pad for a whole bunch of political
Yeah.
careers.
Oh yeah.
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 Okay.
Okay. So they partnered with somebody called the Dana Point Harbor Partners, and they are, and the Dana Point Harbor, yes,
Another vague name that says nothing. The Dana Point
Harbor Partners, which is really three entities that partnered together. Who each entity brings their expertise. One's an expertise in retail, one's has expertise in hotels, and one has expertise in marinas. So those three combined to put their expertise together to rebuild a harbor that has all three of those elements. And I think it was 2 years ago that Orange County entered into a 66-year lease, and so now the Dana Point Harbor Partners has a 66-year lease, and they control this area that's called the harbor, and they are in the process of revitalizing it over.
This
They
entity
tell
says
us-
some of it's private money that's going to get put in to
Yes.
make a profit.
Yes.
And some of it does the county foot the rest of the bill, or the city? Who puts up the rest of the money? All private.
Money's
money?
coming from
state.
private.
Okay.
It's all private.
Money's coming from private.
All
So
right. And they have a 66-year lease on it.
66-year
Kind of like what
lease.
happened up in Long Beach with the they gave a lease to the Queen Mary and the area
Yeah,
around there. Right,
exactly.
to develop to this group. He was in here once to talk about how
Oh,
they're going to
okay.
develop it. Yeah.
So they're going to develop it in 3 phases. The first phase is called the commercial core, which is where they are now. Then they're going to develop 2 hotels, and then ultimately they're going to rebuild the docks and all that area.
Were
Which
they going to dredge it or do anything else or try to?
those I don't know if you've seen those docks, but you know they're a mess. They really need
Yeah.
redoing.
Well,
but
and if you're putting that kind of money in a place like this, my guess is that they're going to basically go after some super yachts and things of that nature,
Well,
which will
yes.
probably mean, yes, to answer your question, there will probably be some deepening of the harbor and dredging.
And this is the big issue with the redoing the water side, because this has been, and it was intended to be for small boaters, leisure, not the big, yachts in Newport Beach. And the people who are the day boaters and the boaters there are very concerned that they are going to lose their harbor.
Yeah. Right.
And,
Sounds like it. Right.
Yeah, so that's a concern they have.
Legitimate,
Yeah,
given the example
yeah.
of what's happened.
All right,
And so they
this-
come to me and say, well, what can we do? And I keep explaining nothing, because city doesn't control it. This is between the county and now the Dana Point Harbor Partners under their lease and the scope of work that they have. So the first thing they're going to do is this retail core.
And you guys don't police it, or that's all part of the county polices it and everything here. They have sheriffs that handle all the policing and everything
Well,
else out there.
The city of Dana Point actually does the policing. We contract like
But
most of
you
the cities
contract to
with the
Sheriff's
Orange,
Department.
yeah,
With the
with the
sheriff.
Orange County Sheriff's
Yeah.
Department. And what we did years ago is we agreed that we would provide the policing if we could get the TOT, the transient occupancy tax,
The
from the
hotel tax,
hotels
right.
and the sales tax from the land side of the harbor, and in exchange we would provide.
So is that all being renegotiated now with these new developments in place?
Well, this is one of my issues, because I asked our CFO, I said, are we recouping what it costs us? And I was told in open session, no, far from it, and it has been this way for years. And so I looked at the state regulations on JPAs, and the state regulations say that the police, if the city provides the police, they have to be reimbursed 100%. So I went to the city manager and said, hey, look at this. Why aren't we going back to the county and the Dana Point Harbor Partners and saying, you can't ask us to subsidize under the JPA rules, we have to be made whole.
But
So,
that's the whole.
So the
that's
city
whole name of the
doesn't
game.
own it,
no,
has no control over it,
right.
and yet is responsible for paying the police costs
Yes.
in the hope that somehow you recoup enough money, and you haven't.
Yes, I think that, well, I think I wasn't there for original, but I think the original thought was, wow, if we get all this sales tax and we get the TOT, the transient occupancy tax,
The hotel tax.
then that's going to more than make up for the cost of us policing them. And maybe back then, when OCSD was so much cheaper, it was a good deal, but it hasn't been
Well,
apparently
right,
for
because
years.
it's very expensive to basically contract
And
to
getting
those
worse.
services. It's getting worse.
Getting worse.
So the county runs it. State owns it. County runs it.
Yes.
They gave a 66-year lease to a private entity to develop it.
Yes.
And you guys get stuck with the bill to police it.
Well, yes, I'm not sure stuck. We have voluntarily.
You
Deborah,
accepted
let me-
you accepted the
let me-
bill.
We have taken that on.
Let me
yes.
ask this question. Just I'm curious. So given the fact that you are now dealing with the county ownership,
Yeah.
No, the county runs it. State ownership.
well, state ownership, county running it.
Yeah.
Well, let's just call that the
County
the
ownership.
public side of it,
Sure.
right? And you got the private entity that's basically coming in, putting in the effort, the know-how, etc.
Under a 60-year
Right.
lease.
Yeah.
Is there a renegotiation of these terms to where the benefit to Dana Point, for example, or I mean, it seems like Dana Point is just sitting there for whatever they feel like giving it, because if it's a state and a county
Right.
and a private entity,
Right.
okay, where's the connection of why Dana Point should get certain X? I mean, you're providing services like the police department. Okay, great. I compensate you for that. Now what? Like what impact on your roads? How, are you renegotiating this? Because again, with the scale of what we're talking about, okay, and if anybody has looked at the renderings, what the footprint of the current situation is versus what is being proposed, okay, is massive. And let me just give
Can we
people.
attach that to this show or
Well,
anything? Is there
That's
a
a-
we can.
PDF?
So
we
Orange
can-
County Register.
That's a picture of the rendering.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Orange County Register, published August 16th, 2019. You guys can look it up. But basically, I'll just bring it closer to the camera. Can you guys see that?
No, you got to move it over there. Oh, that's big.
Okay.
That's high. It's multi-story
Right.
too.
To give people an idea. To give people an idea of what that is, I'm going to bring it back to the camera in a minute here. In the center, I believe, is this where the coffee importers is?
Yes, it's further back.
Further back,
They're-
but this is where,
Yeah.
for those who know. Okay,
Right.
So I'm going to just point my finger to where, if you're familiar with the harbor,
There's a
where the
couple
coffee shop,
older
the coffee
restaurants
shop
there,
is,
yeah.
where the steps come down, and the Harpoon Henry's,
Harpoon
and
Harry's, yeah,
Harpoon
right.
Harry's,
And
okay.
El Torito.
Yeah, I'm just going to point the finger to that.
Okay.
So where's Harpoon Harry's?
I thought we weren't be pointing fingers here.
Yeah. So where those kind of, it's sort of like almost seems like floating docks kind of now. You sort of walk out into this
Well, I want-
thing,
I wanna
and that's
just-
where these restaurants. They're going to tear all that down. They're going to build this.
Yeah,
Yes.
I want to preface
Well,
this.
yes,
Okay,
in phases.
The harbor is definitely a quaint location. It's definitely probably underperforming. Okay.
Yes.
For whoever the benefit
And a lot of it feels
okay,
old. There are a lot of
Yes, it
old.
does.
And I'm going to just point out like a good example. For example, like Lido Village basically was handled sensitively. Mm-hmm. Okay. Lido House. I mean, so it's not about not allowing for sensitive development or reimagination or rebranding, right? Mm-hmm. But what is worrisome is when it seems one-sided.
In what way?
Well, in terms of the arrangement, because I mean, what I'm trying to get to is the benefit that this
What
is
is-
for
what does
Dana
Dana
Point
Point get
and
out
the
of it?
residents. What does Dana Point get out of this that is meaningful enough for Dana Point to say yes?
Well, Dana Point can't say yes or no. We have no say.
And that's exactly why I asked that question.
Right. We have no say. But here's what Dana Point hopes to get out of this.
Okay.
More visitors
Okay.
who will spend more money
At places like Del Prado.
at
and-
places like
and
Del
down-
Prado and
Town
our
Center and
restaurants,
whatever.
which will put more money into the general fund of Dana Point,
Right.
which will allow Dana Point to do more things like develop Doheny Village and services and things
So
for the
it's
residents.
a draw to the area that
Yes.
hopefully will benefit, trickle down to all the other businesses that will benefit from people coming into the area.
Now the obvious one is though transportation. So if this brings
yes,
that many
there will
more
be an
people in,
impact. There will
Oh, there will
impact-
definitely be an impact.
on infrastructure.
Yes, there will be.
Yeah.
There will be no doubt. If you get more people coming into the same space, the law of physics will tell you that it's just going to be more crowded than it was before you had fewer people.
So are they all supposed to come down the 241 and travel north on PCH into Dana Point through San Clemente?
Stop.
Okay, I'll stop. I promise I'd get off.
Are they going to impact anything like the Ocean Institute and the Baby Beach
Oh,
and
yes.
everything? All
What's
that
going
stuff.
to happen?
Absolutely.
Is there is the Ocean Institute staying?
Oh, yeah.
Is it staying as part of
Definitely.
They were
this,
just in
the
here last
redevelopment
week.
plan?
Yeah, they were just
Oh,
in
yes,
here a week
they are
ago.
a big part of who Dana Point is. And
No, but I mean, as far as the redevelopment plan, is it?
well, the
part of that?
redevelopment plan does not affect them or Baby Beach. We're just talking the harbor area.
The commercial
So
area,
again,
yeah.
for
Yeah.
those who are concerned, thank you for clarifying that, Deborah. So Baby Beach,
Baby Beach will still be Baby
that,
Beach.
that little community center there,
Yeah.
that stays.
As far as I know, that's
Right.
staying.
So it's really
How about the yacht clubs and all that stuff?
Yacht Club will be there.
right. So what we're talking about is when you come off the 5 from the bridge, well, not even
Right.
the bridge, like the harbor area.
Right. You turn
But
left
if you're
on
familiar with Harbor Drive, there is a bridge that goes over the harbor.
there's that bridge right by
They-
Denny's. Is that the
yeah,
one
they
you're
used
talking
to
about?
go to, what was that restaurant called? Delaney's or whatever it is?
Yeah, it was. I forget
Yeah,
what it
back in
was
the day,
before.
right?
Yeah.
So there's a bridge that goes over
Yes.
by the Harbor Inn, I think it is.
Yes, it goes over
So-
PCH.
Right. So we're talking from the bridge to
Yes,
like
we're talking
Doheny?
all that. Yeah, all that. You go past Doheny, and then you have all those parking lots where the day boaters.
Right.
Okay, that's going to
Prou-
be
Prou-
impacted.
Proud Mary's.
Oh yes,
Harpooning
all
Mary's,
that.
all
is-
that area.
Yes, all that is going to be impacted. The
Beach and
hotel.
sand, surf and sand.
The
No,
hotel.
not surf and sand. What is it?
No, that's Laguna.
Yeah. What is it? What's that restaurant?
The marine.
No, the one at the very end. Wind and Sea.
Wind and Sea. Oh
Yeah,
yes. In
right.
fact, that's coming down. I have someone I know whose daughter works there, and it's going to be closed. She was telling me it's going to be closed for about a year.
Okay, so that whole area.
all
till
along the
bridge.
waterfront there, all along the waterfront.
All along the waterfront, yes, all, and then all
parking
the
areas
docks.
and the
So
docks.
first they're doing the land side, then they will do the water side.
Okay.
And they're doing the land side in 3
And
phases.
what kind of duration are they estimating at this time? I mean, it's construction, obviously.
Yes. Well, they're saying that this commercial core that they're doing first is going to be over 3 years.
when does it start?
They're going to start with the parking, which is smart, and which I have a huge issue with Dana Point and developing town center. They did not start with the
Yeah,
parking,
yeah.
and now we got this problem.
Yeah.
So they're starting with their 3-level parking garage. They said summer 2020.
Okay.
They've already
here's
they've
my
already
other-
done the infrastructure on the streets.
So here's my other question. All right. So the hope for Dana Point is if the county and the state, through this joint partnership with these 3 private entities that came together under this partnership, turns it into big hotels, big marina, and big restaurants, that this will be a big draw and more people come into town.
Yes.
But won't they just go there? Will it automatically spill over into Del Prado further inland? Or will it suck all the business away from those businesses
No.
down to the new hot entity?
Well, here's the hope.
Yeah.
And so this is where I think Dana Point really needs to have vision right now.
Yeah, that's
What
right.
I'd like
I'm
to
shocked that you guys don't have a vision document.
Well, what I'd like to see, and what I've been saying for 3 years, is put a parking structure like they're doing at the harbor, put a parking structure at Doheny, and put a parking structure in town center.
Oh, spread 'em out.
Have people come into our town, which is only 6 miles, put your car there, and then don't take your car.
Run your trolley.
Run our trolley.
Yeah.
And you have this nice little triangle, and you run them between the harbor, downtown, and Doheny, and that's how you get people around
and
town.
you
Because
alleviate
it's flowing
traffic.
around.
Alleviate
Because
traffic.
otherwise it could be Disneyland
I
where
have-
people come
Yes,
in,
yes.
stay on that little
Yeah.
tiny
Exactly.
footprint
Yeah.
there and never leave, just get in their car and
Deborah,
drive right out.
Exactly.
I've been saying the same exact thing for San Clemente for at least 10 years. I've been saying put a parking lot in north area,
Yes.
put a parking lot in south area, and run your trolley.
Right.
Which ironically was a Tri-City. It started off as an idea for the trolley in South County in San Clemente. Then they abandoned it because they tried to get other people to buy into it, and they became a Tri-City trolley.
Okay.
And then that didn't work, and then all the other cities adopted the trolley system, and San Clemente, which had initiated the idea, was the last one to adopt this system.
Yes, yes,
And
I
yet,
didn't know
and,
that.
And yet you have an aging community, you have people that would use it all day long
Yeah.
if it was a regular part of the infrastructure, like transportation structure.
Absolutely.
Right? And you're absolutely correct, because that is the only way those tight corners and small streets are going to work. You cannot add more.
Well,
No.
plus you want to spread the wealth. Otherwise,
Exactly.
it seems like everybody's going to come down. They'll get off the 5 quickly.
Well-
They'll go down to the new harbor.
Yep.
They'll
Okay.
party. They'll stay. They'll
Yep.
play, and they'll
Yep.
get right back in the car and drive
Right, but-
out, and they'll bypass
Yeah,
the rest of Dana Point.
Paul,
That is very possible.
But Paul, you're saying you got to spread. You want to spread the wealth, okay?
Yeah.
Again, that's because you're sitting with this hat on. If you're sitting with the hat on of that person that was like Disney,
The developer,
okay,
they want
the
them all on their
motivation
property.
is
Yeah.
to never get off the property.
Right.
There's an interesting thing in Orange County. Orange County as a whole, okay, doesn't market itself as Orange County.
No, we've talked about that.
And all these properties like Huntington Beach and all this stuff, the properties themselves, like there is an entity called Orange County
Tourism Authority
or
yeah.
something like that, or tourism group. And it's made up of a lot of people that are in the hospitality industry.
Yes.
Right. But it is amazing
They don't
that
do
we do
anything.
not market Orange County because the intention is, I think, and totally understandable, by the way, from a
Okay.
financial perspective, is I get you onto my property, and I want you there spending money.
Right.
I want you spending it in my restaurant. I want you spending it in the bar. I want you spending it on my beach club. I totally get it. And I do want
That's
to
why
say
you can't walk the strip in
Yeah, but-
Vegas anymore.
but I-
You have to stay in the property wherever you go.
I do
Yeah.
want to say one thing. The people that are involved in this Dana Point Harbor partnership, those are qualified people that have a really successful track record.
Yes,
it's just
they
a
do.
matter of whether the vision of what is being proposed is going to be something that dovetails into the quality of life of South County,
Okay.
or is it going to be importing a different footprint into that area without really having that sensitivity? And to be honest, this is encountered on every project. At the end of the day, it's going to be how it materializes.
But I say
and
it's
who's-
even bigger than
who's
that.
really driving that.
You're going to
ship.
impact Dana Point, sounds like, through traffic.
and
through
the
all
areas
those other
and the
things.
areas around it.
And the areas around it. And your hope is that when they bring all these people down to their property, some of it will spill back into the city and they'll profit from it. But if they don't do it right, it could easily be like Disneyland.
Well, and
You
that-
zoom in,
and
you
that's-
zoom
and the-
out,
the
and
devil is in
and
the
the city has to pay for increased police,
Yep.
increased transportation problems with as they did the last time, without the expected revenue return.
Well, and that could very well happen. That's why I'm saying the city, even though we don't control what's going on there, we control what's going on in the rest of the area.
also could-
And if we don't start thinking, where do we want to be in 20 years and how do we get there and do it now, then
You're going to get cut
The
out of this whole
opportunity
thing.
You're gonna
will
end
be
up,
gone.
You're going to end up with exactly what happened before.
Yes.
It's going to organically happen.
yes.
Yeah.
And you're going to
Well,
end up with whatever you end
Exactly.
And what happened before was, it sounds like you guys agreed to police, and it's never paid off.
Well, I don't know if it's never paid off, but what I was told is when I asked,
It
you know,
doesn't pay off.
do we make
we compensate it?
do we
Or
make
get
as
a
much
comp- yeah.
money as we spend on it? I was told no, and we haven't for quite a
up.
while.
So they haven't been compensated
So,
100%.
I've never been given specifics, but
Deborah, you know what else you control?
Wow.
You may not control that, but you know what you also you do control? You control the lifeline getting into there and out of there. Dana Point controls the access.
yes, that is true.
So in fact, this project would not be viable, could not work without Dana Point. Basically, you are sitting in a bit of strong position. You may not have all the cars, but how the heck would you access it?
Well, and that's why I, like you, want to get rid. I mean, you have to understand, unlike San Clemente, you're a bigger city. We're 6 square miles, and the triangle I'm talking about is probably 2 miles, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this is the most perfect green city footprint in the
Right,
world.
to do that.
We could tell everybody, if you're coming in from the 5, put your car here. If you're coming in from PCH, put your car
there.
here. If you're coming into the harbor, put your car here. And then we just have various modes of transportation to get them around. I mean, we could do all kinds of fun things and put art in public places so people have things when they're strolling around.
Yes, walkable city.
It
yeah.
is so walkable and so much fun.
And you guys have done some of that in your attempt when you split up the two direction of PCH and you turn it into PCH.
which
and
has
Del
been a
Prado.
disaster, I must tell you.
Why?
Well, it used to be Del Prado was one way,
Yeah.
and PCH was the other.
way. Uh-huh.
Okay, then they made both of them
Both ways.
2 ways, and so now people just take PCH because they don't ever have to get onto Del Prado.
So actually,
They take PCH and they're roaring through here,
They
50
bypass it,
miles,
yeah.
50,
so the
60
whole
miles an hour.
intention of
Those
getting
people
people
are
on Del
dying.
Prado,
Yes.
it actually worked in the exact opposite.
Well, yes, but here's the problem. They had a really good plan, and the plan was not followed. So what I feel the opportunity
What
was
wasn't
really
followed?
lost, the town center plan.
Okay.
What they could have done was made PCH the 2 ways that they've done, so that's the thoroughfare, but make Del Prado like a 3rd Street promenade in
Santa Monica.
Santa
yeah,
Monica
right.
or in,
Like
one of the
a
places in
pedestrian-
Denver.
pedestrian.
A walkable.
So you could have made that so cute. It's only a couple of blocks long. You could have had a trolley, like the Grove. Have you ever been to the
Yeah,
Grove?
yeah.
Right.
You could have had a trolley going up and down so people don't have to walk who can't walk. It could have been paved with the brick so that just that one little area, you block off all the cars, you have your street fairs. It could have been really nice. That's not what they did. They made it 2 ways, and instead of widening the sidewalks, which is what the plan called for, so that people could stroll, they narrowed the sidewalks.
needed more room.
And they put medians in the middle for some God knows what reason, because we need more than the 5,000 palm trees that we
Because
have.
it's aesthetic.
And it's not
was- it-
aesthetic.
it
It,
was
would
an
have been
aesthetic
so
decision.
aesthetic to have little carts with ice cream and art in the public places and
Which is
fountains
also
and
additional
people
revenue generation.
walking. Yes, so that people actually want to go.
So let me tell you
and spend
something
time there.
interesting. I've lived in this county now since 90 or something like
Okay.
that. Late 80s, probably about 1990. First up in Anaheim Hills, then in Rancho, and where we've been ever since. I really live in Los Flores, which is unincorporated next to it. But
Yes.
whatever. For the first time ever, my wife and I and our grandson went down to this little Del Prado area that you're talking about, this little downtown thing, and we thought, this is so cute.
Yeah.
Because they had some sort of makers fair or something there where the hell
Yes.
these
Right.
people, I saw a flyer on it. Some actually saw it on Lisa Bartlett's and weekly, monthly thing of what's happening in the county.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And went down. They had all these. They shut the street down like you're talking about, and people were walking around. They had bands and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And I thought it was so cool.
Yeah.
And I said to my wife, "Why have we never been here?"
Yeah.
Then we came back a second time, and it looked abandoned.
Yeah,
It
it is.
looked
Which
like
it looks
ghost
like
town.
that a lot of the time.
All
It
these
looks like
cute
that.
wannabe little restaurants and shops and galleries and whatnot there, and most of it just looked abandoned.
Well, and a lot of that is because they rerouted the traffic, because it used to be that if you were going north, you took PCH, and if you were going south, you had to take Del Prado. And so when I was walking around with the chamber CEO and introducing ourselves to businesses last year or the year before, the Del Prado merchants were saying they're dying. First, they spent 2 years
Doing it.
under the construction, which killed their business, and now no one comes
It's
down Del
bypassing them.
Prado
Bypassing them.
because everyone takes PCH and just runs through the city. So the hope is, okay, so Raintree is building 109 apartments.
That's what I was going to say. I saw these new apartments going up.
Raintree, that huge, all 3 of those buildings are theirs. And then I don't know if you saw between Rado's, that big blue building, and Jack's, which is an institution and a great restaurant. That whole building, that whole block is coming down, and there will be another mixed use, much like the Raintree, which will have another like 60 apartments. So I think the hope is if you infuse people in there who will give you that foot traffic, that will revive. So, the question is, have you killed all those because it's taken so long that the businesses that were there are dying?
What's unfortunate about that is some of those businesses have been around for a couple of generations.
Yeah, they have been.
And so I think, like everywhere else, it'll probably go through a cycle that will flush it out. Some of these businesses may die as a
Yeah.
result of this, may not be able to hold on.
Right.
The rents are going to go up.
Way up.
Way up.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to kill a whole bunch of these people not being able to do it. If you don't believe me, see how many open spaces are on PCH. I've never seen this many open spaces on PCH driving
Right.
up to Corona Del Mar.
Well, and in addition, retail is
Yeah,
going
and
through
retail is
Retail's going
a
troubled anyway.
metamorphosis.
well, it's trying to reinvent itself, but the rents haven't gone down.
Right. Oh no.
So there's a duality, you
Yes.
know, a perfect storm of different things happening.
And Raintree has bought, I don't know if you know where Stillwater is, which is on where it splits Del Prado and PCH
Right.
on the south side.
Yep.
There's an empty lot there. Well, Raintree has just bought that. So it's going to be more of that mixed
Well, if
use.
I mean, look, from the development and put my sort of architecture and design hat on, from the development and ownership side, it makes perfect sense if you're investing in that kind of in the community to basically have these footprints, because it allows you then to mix up your offering
Yeah.
and kind of balance out what your costs are and how you're going to recover it. And I'm not against mixed use. I think the word that always gets lost in a lot of this stuff is sensitivity and appropriateness.
Yes.
Not necessarily my version of what's right or wrong, but just in the community. Because here's what's the bigger thing that dies, is that flavor that makes it a destination. In the course of doing these like massive footprints that may not be appropriate, you
Right.
kill the goose that lays the golden egg, and you end up with just a mass of something.
Yes.
And if you don't believe that over time that mass of something will fail, look at all the malls that we have built around this country
Oh,
and
yeah.
what is happening to them
Oh,
now.
yeah.
Right? Those were destinations at one
They
point.
were.
At one point, they would take out benches from those malls because they didn't want kids to hang around.
That's right.
Right? So we tend to keep repeating certain patterns. And
Are you talking about the San Clemente outlet malls?
no. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about there's value, dollar and cents value, in authenticity. Okay, and in actually leveraging the actual nuggets of where you're doing. If you're going to build and develop,
Yeah.
leveraging what the location offers. Okay, rather than maximum footprint, maximum return
Yeah.
in the quickest time, and then
Right.
flip and turn.
Yes.
Okay, is not really a smart policy.
I agree.
If you're a long-time holder.
Right.
And if you don't believe me, look at some people that are long-time holders. For example, like our friend Shaheen Sadeghi and the lab and the camp.
Yeah.
That lab and the camp is not a 3-story building. It is an authentic destination, and that thing has been alive and
Yes.
functioning and kicking butt since '94.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So
And
let
you
me-
know, the town center plan did not envision. I was talking to one of the people on that
I am
committee.
shocked that you guys don't have a vision statement.
well.
Vision document.
We don't. We have our general plan, but
Especially
it's 30
given the
years
small-
old.
Especially the footprint. But apart from the general plan, I mean, we had a task force that did a vision statement in San Clemente that identified zones for certain things, and how those all tied in together for a larger picture.
Well,
right?
we have our special, plans, like we have our Doheny and our town center, but the town center plan, she was telling me, never envisioned that one developer would come in and buy up all kinds of land and build a big structure. Because our lots are really small. So their vision was, first of all, the second story was supposed to be work.
Uh-huh.
And the third story was supposed to be live. So there were supposed to be offices and professionals on the second story, and the third story was work, and then they would share parking. So they didn't anticipate that somebody like Raintree would come in and build, 3 city blocks of one building. So it could have been cute.
Well, but I think even if one developer basically is building that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I've been involved in hospitality projects since 94, 95. Okay. You can have a small footprint that looks like it's eclectic combinations of certain things. It's still owned by the same developer.
I think they're trying to do
Right,
that.
right.
We'll see what it looks like when it's done.
But again, I got to tell you,
Yeah.
if I have no restrictions
Yeah.
put upon me to challenge me to come up with a product that is sensitive to the community, because I basically don't have to.
Yeah.
Nobody's holding my feet to the fire to that, or challenging me and therefore coming up with a better product.
You're saying they won't.
There's no motivation
Yeah.
to do
Last
so. Why
question.
would I? I will just put my vision and footprint on it.
Last
Well,
question.
the city, let me just
All right,
say
go
one
ahead.
thing. The city did look at the design and try to have different elevations so it wasn't one big,
Massive
block.
block. Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll see what it looks like
Okay,
when it's done.
so
Go
let's-
ahead, Paul.
we got to wrap this up because we're already an hour. We're going to be an hour over on this one.
Oh, my gosh.
I
I got to ask one
Yeah.
question, and then I think we got to wrap it up.
Okay.
I knew you guys could go on for
Yeah.
hours here.
Yes, I could.
Density. The natural progression is to go into density. You're looking more like Irvine. These apartments
Well,
are going
the whole
up.
of Orange County is
Everything's
facing that.
going up.
Yes.
Everything's going up.
driven by affordable housing, basically, or alternative
Oh,
housing.
this is not affordable.
No, but the idea is that I have to go to higher density because I have to provide more housing, like apartments and stuff like that.
Yes.
Because a
No
lot
more
of-
space. We gotta go up.
Because a lot of Orange County, a lot of South County was
Yes.
built as single-family homes.
Yes, I agree.
So what I'm saying is the idea behind that effort is to provide alternative housing options because we have more people.
Yeah, and that makes sense to me. I mean, we do have to provide
But
enough
again,
housing.
the devil is in the details.
It's exactly. So what were you
So
saying?
how does the rest of the older community that bought all these single-family homes feel about this going up?
Well-
They fought it in Huntington Beach and a few other places here. How do they feel about it? It seems inevitable. I get it.
It is. I think there is several camps. One is I'm angry. This is not Dana Point.
The no.
And they're all on the social media, how did this happen? Why did you let this happen?
not in my
This is
backyard,
terrible. Then there's the bulk of the people who are simply resigned. This is just the way it's going to be. This
Right.
is where it is everywhere. And then there are actually people who think this is a really good thing and they embrace it. So,
Well, and I think-
we're all over the
Well,
map
and
like everybody.
Well, but I will say, I think this is, we do have other things that we could talk about, but I want to be sensitive to Paul, and thank you for the extra time, by the way.
This is a conversation nobody ever has.
No, and I
figure.
think we probably did a good job. I want to make sure that everybody who maybe is looking at it and is going, why are you angry at me? I'm just trying to make improvements in your area. This is not the point of what this conversation was. The point of this conversation was to, again, as Debra has left us at this point, there are different camps and different factions that are involved in how this is being basically absorbed and taken to heart one way or the other. Okay, the majority of us down there understand, and not from a sad point, that change is inevitable, that things have to evolve, that this is just the only constant is change. The thing about it is, I want to encourage everybody who has an interest in possibly helping guide this change to step up and volunteer in one capacity or the other, whether you're running for office or you're basically getting on a task force, or maybe you serve on planning commission or whatever.
Right.
Bring the benefit of your voice to this conversation, because even the people that are coming in, like Dana Point Harbor Partnership or any of these entities that are coming in, they're actually risking money and effort and so forth in this effort as well.
Yes.
And so they don't have the benefit of maybe having lived in that area enough to know the nuances.
Right.
So to be fair to everybody, anybody who's upset and angry and what have you, maybe try to look at it not from another perspective, but realize that you have the ability to maybe guide that change.
And I must say, this is how I got on the city council. It was the Rain Tree Project, which used to be the Majestic Project. It was supposed to be condos built by Majestic. And I got involved with a whole group of people. We passed a Measure H that the citizens put on the ballot. But that's how I did it. I got involved and then ran for city council.
And the project that is now being developed have benefited.
Yes,
there was
it has.
contention, but
Yes.
it benefited from the process. If we don't have conversations, again, to the essence of this show, if we don't have these conversations, even though we may have opposing points of view,
Right.
we do not get further along. We don't come up with a better solution. If we don't have these conversations, if we're basically entrenched in our camp against somebody else, that is basically just ready for war.
Yes.
Okay, if you don't have the conversation, so have the conversations. With that being said, I would like to offer an invitation. I want to extend an invitation. I'll see with Paul when we can do it, because I'd like to not have it be too long after the show.
Okay.
Okay, but we are fully booked for October already.
Okay.
Right? But with that being said, Debra, I think if we can figure out a special time, I would like to have you come back and talk about some of these other issues, and I will just share with those who are listening. So we talked about the TCA at length. We have short-term rentals. We have homelessness, which is county-wide
Homelessness,
issue.
that's a whole
right?
day in itself.
So,
yeah.
It
sober
is.
living homes and group homes, and are they the same or are they not, right, kind of thing. And then Dana Point finances and songs, the San Onofre project,
What's gonna happen there, yeah.
and the nuclear rods there, and
Right.
how it's being handled and so forth. So there's a lot to talk about,
There is.
right? And we just spent almost 2 hours talking about a
Good
whole bunch of
heavens.
it in a very organic manner. Please come back.
Okay.
And let's tackle some of these other issues, because they're not just only South County specific. They're actually county-wide,
Yes.
if not nationwide.
And you know what they go to? They go to the heart of the question, but I'm going to, hopefully we can leave it here. What do you want to be, Dana Point? What do you want to be, South County? Do you want to be sleepy single-home suburbia like we were for so long, or little cottages like in San Clemente? Will we accept this transition into high density, going up and being more like San Francisco or New York or something? And in so doing, who's going to shape this? Us or the entities
Well,
that come in and just buy up all this stuff? and
if
do
you
it?
don't step up, and I used to say this ad nauseum at the Historical Society, okay? Because Historical Society tends to be very like, we're going to wrap ourselves around the building, we're going to protect that tree,
Right.
we're going to chain ourselves like
Tree huggers,
At least that's the impression. We weren't, because we had real estate people, we had developers on the board. if you do not step up and sit at the table and be part of that change, somebody else will decide for you. It's not because they don't like you, it's just the nature of the process. So step up. At some point, you got to stop. You got to put down the yard sign. You got to put down the pitchfork and torches, and basically actually get engaged and involved. Because without being part of that process, somebody else will decide for you. Okay, it's not a black and white, Paul. Who you want to be is not Irvine or Sleepy Hollow. Right? There can be a hybrid version,
Clearly.
and that hybrid version will change over time.
But
That's
just as
the
Dana
nature of
Point
life.
never did figure out who it wanted to be, and now it's changing to maybe some consternation.
So is it a sad reflection of the past, or is it an opportunity to engage?
Exactly.
Thank you very much for being here, Debra.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And thank you, Paul.
You have been listening to the Rad Life radio show with your host and age explorer, Rad Gontos, brought to you on the one and only octalkradio.net. Join us again next week as we continue our journey of discovery into life's challenges, opportunities, options, and all the latest and greatest things that come with getting older.